What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Lioneye Watch, or Lioneye Watch. I keep mispronouncing that. Last week we talked about the Atlas reveals and primarily the new map system. Tonight we're going to talk about the upcoming Atlas Essence League that will be launching on September 2nd together with the expansion. And together with me, I have my two co-hosts, HegMPT. Say hi.
What's up, guys? Good to be back.
Still slowly failing.
About getting that. And down in the corner, guys, I have added ProjectPT's recent Uber at Siri run. You guys can just watch that while you watch the podcast here. It's just so that if it isn't enough for you guys to watch at our beautiful faces here, then you can at least look at some Path of Exile content down there. So I don't know about you guys. Did you participate recently here in the 48-hour race that has been going on this weekend, Project?
No, I didn't, which means we can kind of give that torch over to Heggy. Just reason why I didn't, even though it was solo self-found, the 48-hour constraint, I didn't feel I'd get far enough on a character that I'd be having fun in what I like to do. So I decided to just jump in to build help. How about yourself, Heggy? How did you enjoy your experience?
Oh, man. I died at 27. It was a risky invader boss with a ghost in it, and somehow I died with the degen on me with 75 HP. But I ended up re-rolling, got to 66, and then my power went out, so I didn't bother re-rolling. What about you, Christian? I mean, lifting.
Wow. You just gave it away, man.
Well done.
Identity reveal.
I participated in the race and actually had a lot of fun with it as well. I died twice within the first 7 minutes. I got rapidly or assaulted by crabs on the beach. You could say I got the crabs. It was very, very unpleasant. But then after that, I actually, it went fairly well. I ended up being number one champion when I ended that day on the ladder.
Nice.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Then I woke up the other day, and then I was back to like number 3 or something like that. And I couldn't find any fucking maps. I was level 85, and the highest map that I had found was tier 5, or had done was tier 5. I found a single tier 6 just before I logged out that day. So getting experience at that point in time was just brutal. But I realized I haven't had the pleasure before, but I tried Warchief Totems. And holy shit, those things are so OP. And I don't use that word too oftenly. I think it's it's used like about anything that's good, but those things are really OP. So I'm definitely making a build guide around that.
You found your issue with like the tier 5 maps, and that's kind of where you're stuck. So to build a segue, and this is how it's done, we have the Atlas system, which is a change of maps.
Yes.
Are you going to be expecting similar results? Because we start with the gated tier 1s, right? There's only going to be 4 gated tier 1s. Are you really going to be expecting when they overhaul the maps that it's going to change how quickly you progress from the lower tiers to the mid tiers?
You're asking me? Or
yes.
Well, I was just very... When I was doing this, I kept thinking, this is something I hope they will address in Atlas, and this is what I expect that will be addressed in Atlas. I'm hoping that the progression will feel much more smooth, it will be less random, but I'm not too sure about their intentions yet. What do you guys think? Is this the intention?
Well, I think it's going to be the same.
I think it's going to be the same? Really?
Yep.
I think it's going to be easier. I think they've listened to that criticism a few times.
I think it's kind of hard to compare because you have Beyond and Onslaught. Those are two inherently pretty difficult properties, and you're experiencing that at tier 1, so you're less likely to run already hard map mods on your lower tier stuff, so it might be harder to progress and get higher and higher. The league is pretty brutal. I mean, it's a lot of fun, kept you on your toes, but if you disconnect, yeah, good luck. I don't think it matters what build you're running. You know, the mobs just moved way too fast, and they're just going to kill you. A lot of people were dying around the 83 marker that were making it into maps. But I'd assume the Atlas stuff is going to start out way easier, you know, and especially with the Jungle Valley boss getting put to tier 1, that map is going to feel so much easier.
What build did you attempt doing this with, Hedgie?
I just went cookie cutter elementalist because it was OP and I knew it would hit 80 fast, and I just wanted to get the qualifications for the giveaways, and that was my ultimate goal. But again, the power went out, and that was the end of my character.
Yes, that is such an unfortunate way to die.
Yeah,
So demoralizing. But yeah. So, guys, we're going to talk about Essence League today. We're going to talk a lot about Essence League. This would be like the most important thing. We skipped that the last time because it's a big subject. And so to present Essence League, again, it is the new Challenge League coming here with the expansion on the 2nd of September. And to present it, so in GGG's own words, you will encounter groups of monsters trapped by an ancient force, break them out to steal their essence, then use these to craft powerful items. And there is 25 different types of essences with up to 7 power levels each, creating deadly encounters with tantalizing rewards. So, Project, the first time we talked about this, the thing that struck me was that you called this Lockbox version 4.0. Would you mind explaining that?
I can't remember if it was Lockbox version 4.0 or 3.0, but what we essentially have is a mechanic that when we click on it, mobs spawn, we kill the mobs, we get a reward. So in the Ambush League, that's what was introduced. Now, even if you look at the types of lockboxes that spawned in Ambush, then we later on got the Parandus League, and the Parandus League did another similar thing where it just, the mobs would be pre-spawned, you killed them, and then you got the loot. And even the types, there would be the very rare ones, but you had ones that were focused on jewelers, a rare one that focused on divination cards, which we finally got a lockbox kind of, well, not really. There was a prophecy chest. And now we're getting an essence mechanic. Now, one of the things that I noted on the video is it seemed you had to click it multiple times to activate it. If that was true, because it was bounded by whatever essence,
Desync.
miracle. But the ability to not misclick, because when you're fighting and a fight comes up to you and you're around a lockbox, I like that element if it's going to be there. I'm trying to remember if there was a third one. So yeah, it was Lockbox 3.0. It's a mechanic that people have liked in the past, but it's also avoidable. And one of my criticisms towards some of the more previous leagues that we've had, and even Prophecy, is I want the challenge to come to me. I don't want to just seek out the challenge and be like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Oh, found it. Okay, I can avoid it if I don't want to do it. You're not really being challenged at that point.
How do you guys feel about these challenges being completely avoidable, Hedgie? Is this preferable to you?
I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat with PT. I like some stuff to be forced onto me, like I have no choice, and therefore it inherently creates some difficulty. I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical if they're going to have the engagement that they want, especially people that care about getting fast and XP per hour and progressing through the game. I have my doubts that they'll actually go and click something because, I mean, at most you're going to get an essence, and that essence is going to create an item. And most top tier players can get away with not having any items, just making it work with whatever they find. So
and they would also use the argument that if they just keep killing faster, they will get more items anyway.
Right. So, I mean, this is the only new thing that we have at the beginning of the game, because the Atlas expansion is focused on the mapping system. So essences have to be pretty rewarding for people to actually engage in. We don't know what the drop rates are. All we know is that, some of the essences are gated behind item levels. And
we do know, however, that or Chris said in a video that he expected at least one essence to drop per map or per zone.
And he also said that the highest drop can be a tier 5, which means you would need to clear approximately 9. Yes, 9, double checking. You'd need to approximately clear 9 zones if the tier 5s are that frequent, at minimum, to get the tier 7.
Before we get more into that specifically about the drop rates and all that stuff, Project, why don't you explain what these essences do and how they're used.
So how these essences are going to work, and I guess while I'm doing this lifting, could you throw up the straw poll and we just want to figure out which leagues interested people most while we're going through this. But there are two things that the essence will do. The first is a modified alch orb where you get a guaranteed roll. So it could be a life roll, it could be a flat lightning damage roll, it can be an energy shield roll, and on every single item there is some property that it will apply to. Once you get up to the tier 6 or the tier 7 ones, if I can just double check that, it also has the ability to be treated like a chaos orb. And this will then guarantee that on a chaos spam, or like a chaos spam, but you will get one roll. So you consume the essence, you get the one roll that it guarantees, and then everything else is randomized. It uses the same nomenclature, the same words that we find on a chaos orb. So we actually have this currency that at the higher tiers is both an alch and a chaos, and at the lower tiers is a chaos.
So how can you explain how does that work with it being an alch at the lower tiers and the chaos at the higher tiers? So it will simply re-roll a rare item using the higher tier ones, and at the lower tier ones you can use it on a white item to create a rare item.
Correct. The lower levels you have it's essentially can only be used in the same functional space as an alchemy orb. Yes. But the higher ones work as both an alchemy and a chaos. They get dual function.
Oh, and in regards to the straw poll, I can't show that on stream right now. I will show it next time, but I can also tell you guys right now that in the lead right now of what's the preferable league for people based on votes, it is actually Beyond League right now, and Parent is coming in a second. But I, of course, want to show you guys this the next time. But I don't want to risk showing my browser on stream and all that stuff. I mean,
fair enough.
There's too much obscure porn.
I thought you would have had that. Yeah. Too much random obscure Danish porn.
Yes.
So,
exactly.
So let's talk about like the whole system. So we get these lesser essences, combine them up. It's like a pyramid scheme, and I'll just compare this to the Talisman League. It's kind of similar. Only this time we don't have to worry about item level. And that was my biggest qualm with the talismans. It was so tedious to keep it organized because there was a certain prerequisite item level that you needed to get a certain unique. And we didn't have any other tools other than, just simply organizing it to determine what the average item level was. So I like that they took out the tediousness of that completely away from the whole pyramid. But at the same time, I'm like wondering how many of these essences, especially the top tier ones, can I get, with as much as I play, is it going to be 20, 50? What do you guys think? By the end of the league, how many do you...
At this point in time, when we look at the essences that have been released to us, there are at least level requirements or like level sets of these items, so you could expect them in the zone. But when you're clearing a high level zone, you can get a low tier item. So that's really the question we're up. We know that we're going to get about one an instance, which they seem to like that design space. But is that going to be one tier 5? Yeah. Is that 50% tier 5, 50% tier 4, or is it evenly distributed? It's hard to say. But if the clear speed meta is still going to exist and we have builds like Valsparks, you can generate these quite quickly. Does this mean Dried Lake will potentially drop tier 5 ones and be insane essence farming?
Wasn't it only in maps that tier 5 was able to drop?
I would expect those ones because I think they were required level
75.
75.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think I saw someone do the math that if you want to get a tier 7 using only tier 1s, you'd have to find 729 of those if you want to upgrade the entire way. And
not happening.
So when I see things like that, I obviously think, that's not how you're going to craft a tier 7. That's not the intended mechanic or the way of going.
Well, I would assume you would just ignore anything below a tier 4.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about this just completely clusterfucking up my inventory or cluttering up my inventory. I remember with Talisman, there was so much crap. It was very interesting, but there was so much stuff where I was just like, shit, I'm throwing this away. But at the same time, I mean, we have white items in the game where you do the same thing, so I'm not sure if it's too much of or too big of a thing.
Well, the main thing that I'm hoping, and this might be where they stack to 9, and the reason for that is because that's good. 3 sets of 3. If they made it so vendoring 1 stack of 9 gave you a +2, just please do that. I don't see why that would be impossible.
Yeah, that would be such a quality of life improvement here. So, did you mention the essence of horror project and how they work?
The essence of horror, we know that there's a couple corrupted essences that they described it, but you don't obtain these through Val orbs. You actually have, what's that name of the modifying essence? Did anybody catch that one? It's Remnants of Corruption, I believe its name is. Yeah. So you somehow use Remnants of Corruption. We're not 100% sure. And you somehow turn a normal essence into an essence of horror. ZiggyD also confirmed that there are some other, corrupted essences, styles. And GGG said that there was going to be different rarities. So you don't have all the essences evenly distributed where you find them all at the same difficulty. Now, the essence of horror that we've seen does some pretty insane things. Yeah. But right now we're going to take a look at, just to get the basics, essence of woe. For reference, the suffix represents the tier. Woe is is this the top tier? Yeah, woe is the top tier. Then it's greed, torment, contempt, horror. I was reading the different ones. I had a list of the...
It's in the Google Docs.
It's in the Google Docs. My apologies. I read the wrong thing that I was looking at. It's not in this one. If you have it in front of you, you can read it, Lifting.
I don't have it in front of you. Basically, it's just a set of different names, all being a sound, which then has different types of properties and shows off the tier. And so based off these things here, guys, how do you see yourself using these new essences or these new crafting components in the new league? Will you use them as a means of crafting gear for yourself? Will you sell them to all other people and try to make a profit that way? Or is there any kind of particular essence power that you see yourself using or a lot of potential with, Hedgie?
Well, I mean, the essence of horror definitely catches my attention because that one seems a bit more interesting with like the layers of stacking defenses or the ability to generate charges. As far as the other ones, to me, it's like maybe the spell damage one would be really useful for getting it on a dagger, because usually on a wand, you're going to want cast speed or cast speed, proj speed, crit multi, and things like that. But on a dagger, just getting spell damage is not bad because you usually want attack speed so that you can whirl around faster. So that one, I do see some value. The flat lightning damage to spells is pretty cool, but it's still kind of random. And I'm still sitting here wondering if it's going to be worth collecting so many essences, building them up to a tier, and essentially it's a chaos roll. I mean, how many rares have you ID'd in the past and they were just not good? Or how many hundreds of or thousands of chaos orbs have you spent on a single item only to see nothing really good drop? If you get one guaranteed property, I mean, that's kind of nice, but...
Well, how often is that item shit because it doesn't have tier 1 life roll?
Yeah, I definitely... I can see myself saving the ones that gives you a guaranteed life roll. Or, I don't think we've seen this yet, but we are speculating that there will probably be ones that grants some kind of resistance. And in those
there is 25 of them.
Yeah, there's 25 of them. And for those, I can see myself saving those just to make my gearing process easier. And it doesn't even have to be a particularly high roll. If you could use the tier 3 or tier 4 of those, you can easily, or so much easier, cap your resistances and progress faster. The other ones, on the other hand, the ones that are a little more specific, I think I would be more inclined to just sell them because crafting, it's a lot of work.
Well, the thing that you need to keep in mind, and just the correction from earlier, unfortunately, these things are walls of text, so it's really easy to screw up random things. The prefixes were the types, and the tier 1 to tier 7 is whispering, to muttering, to weeping, to wailing, to screaming, to shrieking, to deafening, there's a bit of a theme. But the other thing that wasn't mentioned is because it has the same phrasing of Chaos Orbs, and this has been one of the things where the Reddit has been having a bit of discussion, you actually have the tools of having the prefixes cannot be changed or the suffixes cannot be changed.
Right.
And then cleaning them and using another one of these orbs, because they don't all give prefixes and they don't all give suffixes.
Right.
It is actually possible to guarantee four mods, 2 prefixes and 2 suffixes for a total of 16 exalts. Someone actually did the breakdown on the Reddit, and I'll share that with chat so they have that available to them. But these are tier 0 modifications, higher than can be found using the tier 7s.
Yeah, but
you can guarantee 2 prefixes and 2 suffixes with these.
That's like really like the elite and the elite with a lot of currency are going to be able to do things like this. I mean, it's cool that it exists. It's, you know, a theoretical possibility, but the amount of players that will be able to do that will be very, very limited. It's like the top 0.0001%.
And I can definitely agree. It's definitely the rich person problem in Path of Exile. The only thing is, if you try to chaos spam an item for crafting, you're going to get much higher than 16 exalts pretty damn quick.
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
The question would be what you could sell these for. How much they would be worth.
I mean, I guess we won't know until we find out how common the T5 drops are.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a T5 in every zone, as soon as you're above 75, then this is going to be a very, very different story. I mean, it's going to completely change the market then. But yeah, it's just speculation. We can't really say too much about it yet. How do you guys, on that tangent, how do you think it's going to, this implementation of these essences, how do you think it's going to impact the current value of the currency or craftable items we have right now, such as the Chaos Orb or the Alchemy Orb, PT?
Well, the Chaos, it's going to depend if you're softcore or hardcore, obviously, because like when the leagues were ending, you had like 20 to 25 chaos per exalt in the Prophecy hardcore. In softcore, it was sitting around like jumping between, what was it, 80 chaos and 110. I think it went highest at like 105 or something.
Right now it's at like 40.
Well, it's end of the league. People care a lot less about their currency and retaining it. But the issue is going to be how you're not really going to want to chaos spam things that need a tier 1 life roll essences. Even the tier 2 essences have the tier 1 life roll. Like where the tiers, or the highest tier, the tier 7, has a tier 0 roll. You can get 3 tier 1 rolls.
You can do really good with just the tier 5 roll.
Yeah, like that's a tier 2.
If you're guaranteed to get a good life roll with just the tier 5, if it turns out they're not too rare, I mean, who would want to chaos spam then? Like, this could mean the end, potentially, to chaos spam.
Do you get a chaos every zone? No.
Exactly.
If you got a tier 4 every zone, that's quite powerful.
I think this is going to make it so much easier to gear your character. And again, if these... did they require level 75 to use as well?
The modification on the tier,
I don't think so. No.
7.
Okay. So, I mean, if they are somewhat common, you can easily buy them at the at PoE trade as well, and just pump up some of your leveling gear as well. It will make your gearing so much easier with just a couple of good essences to add some resistances or some life.
Well, hardcore, to the original question, why chaos can have a more stable value is players die, and that just continuously removes currency. When you talk about people crafting and wanting to make better and better weapons with these modifications, when you want to invest, it's always generally better to just buy a weapon rather than craft your own. That is now going to be just, hey, if you have the exalts, you can craft some pretty interesting bases. You have to remember items like wands are notorious because the flat fizz roll is so important alongside the percent. But if I get the percent and I regal a suffix, I can then spend 4 exalts to get a higher than tyrannical roll
Yeah.
on my, or sorry, not higher than tyrannical, higher than flaring roll on my tyrannical or merciless wand for 2 exalts.
Yes.
Good luck finding a wand with those stats for 2 exalts. Like, that's insane.
I almost feel like it goes somewhat against the idea of removing the Eternal Orb. Just that in the sense that it makes crafting more reliable. You have much better chances here. It's not going to give you that second roll, but it removes some of that randomization.
I mean, I kind of feel like the opposite. I feel like chaos spamming is going to be better than like taking the time and effort to collect these essences, build them up, and then randomly roll. I mean, yeah, you might not find a chaos per map, but you'll find a fusing, an alch, a scour, or chisels, and then you could trade it for a chaos and then just, get that roll. And I'd rather have something with 3 or 4 useful properties and then, use the Haku Master and craft 64 life on it with 4 chaos orbs. So, I don't know. It seems like a really big dice roll for a lot of effort.
Shouldn't you still be able to do that, Hedgie? You can still do that. Let's say you have a white armor and you add some life to that. Your character needs some life. You add some life and some other rare affixes. You should still be able to use the masters to craft that resists or whatever that is.
Right. But you could only craft 1 property, right? Like
but you have to remember you're guaranteed a tier 0 or tier 1 roll, depending on how much. Even if you land 1 resist and have an open suffix, you have a double resist item with tier 1. You need to land 1 roll. If you land 2, you already have a 4 property item, and most people don't upgrade from 4 desired property items.
I mean,
that's
right. I'm
really
not saying
easy to land.
I'm not saying it's not easy to land. I'm just saying, is it going to be worth the effort to collect and engage with these crystals that could potentially take you out? I mean,
that'd be funny if they're hilariously rippy. I would be very happy for that. Just make some.
If they are hilariously rippy, then people are not going to do it. They're going to be like, "Oh, it's not worth it." That's the fine line that they have to draw. At what point does this become not efficient or not worth it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to depend on the drop rates. It's going to depend on how dangerous it is.
I think initially, the way I'm going to use it is, while my gear is crappy, as I get an essence, I'm just going to use it on something. But once I get to the later stages of like gearing my character, there's no way I'm going to rely on one of these essences to fulfill what I need in a certain slot, because I need multiple things, whether it's leech in life or flat fizz in life or resist and, whatever. So a lot of the times I'll just be happy with whatever the master crafter can give me as far as a life roll. And, when you're min-maxing, you need very specific things for it to work, especially if you're going to use uniques. So I can see this as a very casual way of getting items that help you progress and get you through like a pretty steep difficulty. But as far as like getting the expectation of this is going to work for my current build, I think that's a lot of effort for not a lot of gain.
Okay.
But the horror essence, like that's something I definitely can see people trying to remove the properties and utilize that one property. If you guys want to go over those, that'd be awesome. But I really like the weapon one, where you get 10% chance to gain frenzy, power, or endurance charge. We have these ascendancies like the trickster or the assassin. They have that 10% chance to get a charge upon this, but it's just not quite enough for some things. And this will just push it over and make it really smooth.
This is, however, it is worded that it is either one of them. It's not going to be always a power charge, always an endurance charge, always a frenzy charge.
Right.
It's similar to the one in the skill tree. That would actually be fun to pair those together. I guess they would stack, so you'd have like a 20% chance to gain either of them.
Random charge.
Yeah.
Right. The
for reference,
overcharged.
Yeah, for reference, if we don't have the image up for the essence of horror on the weapon, and it was a suffix roll by looking at a wand that they spoiled earlier, it will guarantee the roll of a 10% chance of power, frenzy, or endurance charge on kill, or not end. The gloves will give you a 5% increased critical strike chance. It seems to assume base, odd phrasing though, Body armor is a 15...
Wait. Going back to the gloves, it says 5% increased critical strike to whatever socketed, but can we assume that it's local and not global to that skill?
It should be local, otherwise it would just be the worst thing in history.
That's one of the things. It's either, why would you ever do that?
Here's a nice 5% global crit chance.
Yeah, it's like nothing.
But 5 is insane if it's local. Imagine putting your peacock setup in there to generate the power charges, or to make you pop the elemental overload or whatever.
Or Vol skill.
Well, this essence actually makes like Hierophant have more interesting options, but it gets more and more broken. Body armor, 15% of physical damage taken as cold.
Yeah,
that's so good.
Taste of hate. Helmet, socketed gems deal 40% more elemental damage.
More. It's not increased. It's
synergized with the Hierophant too, because the 20% pen in the helmet is so good.
The quiver and the ring have 4 to 8 cold damage per frenzy charge.
I found that to be really underwhelming.
PT had a good argument.
It's a huge number if you have a lot of frenzy. Like, that's an insanely high number.
Yeah, if you go for that Raider frenzy build, like if you can get 10 to 11 frenzy charges, that's a ton amount of flat damage. Then add a pair of Southbound and you're good.
You just need to land the wed roll on the ring, because without the wed roll,
not so much.
Then you have the amulet, which has 15% increased effective fortify.
Yeah, I really like that one a lot.
And then finally, the belt has 5% additional physical damage reduction during flask effect.
5%?
Yeah, 5%. So
yeah, it's definitely worth it.
1/4 of Basalt Flask.
Yeah,
I'd assume that would probably be a suffix too.
The prefixes are generally mana and life, so it would make most sense to be a suffix. Then again, swing in the dark on that one.
I think the armor affix that adds the 15% physical damage taken as cold, I'm having a really hard time imagining a scenario where I wouldn't want to get that. And I don't really, of course, there's probably a few ones, but like in general, that thing is just so powerful. But depending on how the drop chains and value, of course, but I would add that to almost anything. I don't know.
Would you prefer an essence like that to be, let's say, what if the essence itself was as rare as a lightning coil? Because that mod is kind of insane. You have to remember, lightning coil has a mediocre life roll, and minus 40% resists.
Yeah. You could make up for some of the other, or for the lower damage reduction with other stats, if you went with the essence. I think I would prefer the essence, also because it is cold instead of lightning. Like, you don't have the shock, you don't have to deal with the minus 60 lightning resistance. I don't know.
So and that's definitely a mod. It'd be worth wiping. Wiping the mods, the prefixes or whatever.
One of the things we actually kind of wanted to do with this is make certain speculations, but then hold ourselves accountable to it. So for the first speculation point, is that a prefix or a suffix?
I think that's a suffix.
I think it is a prefix. So it would compete with the armor and life.
I want to say prefix, because I could not see a world where they would allow triple energy shield prefixes and then that as a suffix. Like, that would be the most insane thing to ever exist.
Man, there's no reason to ever go live again.
I'm going to go with the suffix.
You're going with the suffix?
I'm going that it's a suffix. Man. Because it's on chess piece. The chess piece, all the elemental stuff are suffixes. I'm putting it on a suffix.
We'll see who's right.
Except for flat attack damage. Those are all prefixes.
Well, they're not found on chess beasts now, are they?
Well, Lightning Coil. Lightning Coil has flat LE.
I wonder if it's called a unique because it has unique properties.
Yeah, well, that's that too.
So how do you think, in general, that the general population of Path of Exile will be using these? What do you guys think? Will we see them mostly as trades? And what about like new players to the game here? Because I think if I were coming into Path of Exile and I saw this wall of text, I would just delete the item, out of sight, out of mind, never dealing with it again. Because holy fuck, I mean, as even for us, I think there's a lot of information here that's fairly complex. And we've been playing the game a lot. So, what do you think, Hedgie?
I think you should just use them as you go. Much like the Masters, like during Forsaken Masters, impacted the way we level by being able to accommodate, even out your resistances, get what you need, whether it's leech or whatever. Just use them as you find them. Don't hoard them. And the essence of horrors, those are some things. Those are the ones you want to hang on to and sell for a lot. Yeah. I highly doubt that these are going to sell for a lot, like the other ones, where they just give you flat base rolls. Because, I mean, you can find really, really sick items just by clearing really fast.
Yeah, true.
Well, like, I have a problem with the wall of text.
Yeah, I kind of do as well.
I watch, like, Bob the boat builder when he's going through that on the noob run, and my friends when they've played the game or I've tried to introduce them, or if I watch other people's first experiences of Path of Exile on YouTube. I'm not saying that I dislike what it does, but the presentation of information is vomit. It is just an item drops and it vomits over your screen.
Yeah, perhaps we're given too many decisions to make. You're just like, what the hell? What do I do with this thing? What is the best way to use this?
Yeah, I mean, this is a general problem in Path of Exile.
But it's normally not this bad. They even specifically have rephrased uniques when they're too long, and they avoid certain text formats being too long. And then this is just, what is this?
I think they are aware of it, though, because Chris mentions himself in the video where they talk about something like this, that this has a lot of text. He says that directly. So I think they know that. But at the same time, we are seeing this expansion catering to the endgame content. So maybe they are, a little more. Maybe they understand that this probably more to cater to the people who already have played Path of Exile for some time. I don't know. But it's
kind of like D2 runes. I mean, D2 runes had the same, and gems or whatever, they had the same experience where if you put it in a different socket, it has a different effect.
Yeah. And
maybe they're trying, I mean, I feel like the D2 community is already here.
Say you got a rune once per zone, and runes, you didn't get a rune once per zone.
Yeah.
Runes were an interesting mechanic, but they weren't, it's a hard comparison because the style of games once was kind of a done and it was updated from time to time, but you had a finished product. This is one of the highlights to pull new players in. They're not doing an expansion to not grow the base game. Is that what you're telling me? This is the mechanic, as you stated. They're not seeing the Atlas stuff, which is smoothed out end game. They're going to see this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is the difference.
If you could just have like an alt button so that when you alted over it, you would see the wall of text. And then when you didn't, it would be like reforges an item giving specific items different properties. And then press alt and it says hold alt to show more. Then you press alt and you would get that wall of text.
Yeah.
That would at least be a visual
forced
format. Yeah.
I think that would make it more pleasant.
You're fighting Hailrake, and you don't know what this thing does. You click on this essence thing, and then that item drops. You mouse over it, and now you can't even see your screen.
I think I would just be
welcome to Path of Exile.
The problem is also if you get an item where there's that much text and you're a new player, you'd just be like, holy fuck, this thing is sick. What am I gonna do with this? I found an item that can do a million things. I'm gonna sell this for a ton, and then you'd get discouraged when you realize that's not really the case. And I mean, it's sending a signal here that I think as a new player I would be a little intimidated by it, but we'll see. And at PT, I know to round up this essence conversation here, we've talked a lot about these. We need to move on, but I know you have expressed let's say, concerns about Essence Leak. Would you care to explain that?
There's a reason gear drops randomly. And
he's thinking.
It's very, very important.
He's trying to behave himself. Yeah.
I have to pick my words.
Yes.
I'm someone who, before transitioning to solo self-found, would, near the ends of leagues, literally take, hundreds of exalts worth of chaos, stacks and stacks of assaults, even get items donated because it was the end, and just, spam. And I can tell you if I was spamming a wand at the time. And we're going to look at the context of, there was the wand change, and I actually haven't crafted wands since they did the change of the, physical rolls roll together and spell rolls roll together, at least mildly. I could spend about easily maybe about 30 exalts worth of alterations before finding a tier 1%.
Yeah.
Maybe if I was lucky, I'd get 2 in about 30 exalts. The fact that I could guarantee higher than flaring on a roll, as someone who crafts, I think there's a problem in terms of there's so little point of crafting, and this is an attempt to solve it so more people can be engaged in crafting, because crafting is a lot of fun, but unfortunately, it's never worth it. You just shouldn't craft. This seems like the opposite problem, where now they're making it so that you might as well not loot things. Like if it's not on a tier 1 optimal base, what's the chance of your item being better than someone just throwing on a tier 1 roll, landing a resist, and then multi-modding onto it? It's going to be more of just don't loot anything but rings. And this problem accelerates itself. Tier 1 rolls just don't appear that much. And this is even tier 2 or tier 3 rolls. It's surprisingly infrequent. When we want to talk about the increase of drop rates of uniques, when they increase the drop rates, we've seen items go from 80 exalts down to 3 exalts. I've seen chevrons being sold for 1 exalt in 2.1.
Yeah.
It's a large decrease, and they only increase the drop rates by about 5 times. That's all you really need to do once you saturate the people who want that item or are going to invest into it. So you're going to increase the amount of tier 1 rolls frequency by how much? How frequently do you get a chaos, all right, orb to drop? Then how frequently does that chaos orb guarantee a tier 1 roll? You don't even need eye level 84 gear to get a tier 1 roll. And most often you just care about 1 or 2 tier 1s. So it's going to turn into this, hey, if everybody's focusing on essences, if you're trading, then chaos might have such a low value that you could sneak in, buy, hoard the chaos, and just efficiently chaos spam because you're now getting it at such a great deal. But as solo self-found, which the game, as a disclaimer, should never be balanced for, this is a challenge that solo self-found people impose on them, I'm now in a situation where I'm like, well, you just literally gave me all the gear that I would ever want. Like, oh, I'm playing a life-based build. Yeah. It's easy to resist cap myself. Tier 1 life roll. Boom. Nice. Good gear progression. Thanks for ruining the reason to play solo self-found.
Agree with this, Hedgie?
Yes and no. Maybe I'm not the perfectionist, but I'm happy with tier 2, tier 3 rolls as long as the other properties, because you have 5 other properties that will significantly impact your character. And for me, I'm not happy with just a tier 1 life roll. I've seen so many items. I've chaos spammed so many points. My best items are often tier 2 rolls, but with other properties like evasion.
Yeah, but if you want tier 3 rolls, you can get them at 9 times the efficiency.
Well, we're talking about the efficiency, but we don't know how easy these essences are to acquire. And
do you even get a life roll every chaos roll? That's the thing.
No, but that's not necessary though. For me, it's not necessary, because if I have T1, resist, like 3 T1 resist, including attack speed, I will be happy to get 64 life on, gloves when I can get 89 or even more. That's perfectly acceptable, especially if I have leech on it. And to me, it's not just one roll that sets the tone of the character. I need a lot of things to happen, because if I want to use uniques, I need resists and I need other things.
Yeah, I'm probably the opposite there. I feel like if I can just guarantee one good roll, then I can pretty much make my character work until I get the currency to make it better. But yeah, I understand. Project, that was a very, very eloquent way of presenting your opinion here, and very, very nice. I think that was very well.
I avoided all the swear words in that comment. But just for the sake of it, fuck. There is a secondary concern, which, there is a bit of more speculation related to. If we can expect tier 10s to be as difficult in 2.4 as tier 10s are in 2.3, we're getting more power creep, because if these rares would be better than the current items we're using, that is, and follow my logic, a better item, and we equip items, continue this logic, for more stats. Turns out stats are power. So if the content isn't toned up, this is just more power when we don't need power. Yeah. You can very easily see impressive features with just a tabula rasa. Yeah. And if you're going to make life rolls even easier to compensate for the missing life of tabula rasa or the resists or the damage, this is power that we don't inherently need. And if maybe the tier 16 bosses will be challenging, but that's not enough.
Yeah, this is my main concern as well. This is definitely my main concern with it as well. It already feels somewhat easy to get to the point where you actually can take on the hardest content. If we make that easier, then this is, it's gonna feel less rewarding. That's my main concern.
With the Sextants, the power is going up a little bit depending upon what mods that are applied. But within the radius, you could, have, instead of an 8 property map, you could have a 11 property map. When it's augmented by multiple Sextants. So,
yeah, you have to seek that out then.
But it's optional, it's optional.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
If you run a map and you're like, I feel comfortable, it's a minus max double elemental damage, and you're like, yeah, you know what, I can do it. And then the first pack you see is a porcupine. Do you run that map? No, because that map is death.
Well, guys, we've talked a lot about these essences. Let's move on. And just as a fun thing here, guys, we're gonna show you the new vault map. We're gonna show it here on the stream, and then we're just gonna commentate on it as we go. Your Hegemony project. Do you have your video ready? Yeah. Because otherwise it will be behind.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm just gonna add it here, guys, and you can see this. I'm not sure if there's sound on this, but it's only a 56-second clip, so I'm sure you guys will be good. So watch this; it's pretty cool. So I'm starting it now. All right, we're rolling. Vault map reveal.
So it looks like the Solaris theme is a little bit brighter, and then it's got a lot of treasure and some switches. So it's interesting to see that they're incorporating some of the lab mechanics within the map. We've had the Plaza map where we saw the traps, and as he's going through this vault,
it gives you that feeling of hype, something to look forward to. It gives you that oh shit, what am I opening the door to here? And it feels very, very mysterious. And the thing is, yeah, here comes the golem here.
Yeah, look, there was a treasure chest, like a cache or something. I'm hoping this map has like a ton of orbs, like it has a massive Arcanist box or something. What do you guys think? Is this a unique map, or do you think this is going to be a base map? It looks pretty damn unique.
I have no idea what it is. I have no idea. You think it's a map, PT?
I do think it's a map, actually.
I think he meant unique map.
Yeah. I don't think so. I don't think it's a unique map, because that would be a weird one with the switches. I think it's a base. It wasn't it? It doesn't have an extended name. It was just called the Vault. If it wasn't a unique, it would be the Vault of blah 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 or something. Should just be a normal one.
Vault could be a name. I guess it's not the Vault, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe that would be. I think it was Pox who once talked about that he would love to see traps and these types of mechanics in maps, regular types of maps. Would you guys like that?
I can agree with that. I think the Plaza Boss, which was one of the new maps introduced in it came out 2.2 or was it 2.3? I don't remember.
2.3, I think.
It was 2.3. It's a great boss, and part of it is the traps. It's one of my favorite bosses to do, actually. Levers, however, there's a mechanical advantage
you don't
to
want that
levers.
Shit.
Well, it's not a trap. like oh no, lever trap.
Yeah.
But there is something interesting from a mechanic standpoint. When you have a build that can shoot through some of the walls, right? Projectiles can pass through a couple of them, versus when you don't. The levers, locked doors, you cannot put projectiles through. The doors need to be opened, and that gives them more design space. But if it slows people down a lot, they're just going to be like, okay, I'll run it casually.
Yeah,
but
for the fun of it, right?
It's just a map with mobs.
Yeah, and we can see through the boss fight, there are a lot of proximity shields that go up, and the boss moves relatively fast, and he does like a little mini ground slam. So it looks like at some point you might have some melee engagements where you have to get up close and personal, and even if you are a range character or a caster.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we don't really know anything about it. We wanted to showcase and just get some speculation out there. And of course, if you guys have anything in chats of this, feel free to type it so we can get some impressions. I'll go over that when I'm done here to see what you guys are saying. But overall, it looks like a lot of fun, but that's pretty much what we can say, right? We can see there's some mechanics being incorporated. It looked like it had some kind of that Parantis theme to it as well, with the coins and all that stuff. But maybe we can expect like a type of currency or
I hope so.
Rarity.
I'd be very disappointed if it was called Vault and it didn't drop orbs.
Yes.
Maybe it'll be as valuable as Vault of Exiles. Actually, I like Vault of Exiles once they made it so that it could drop fragments. That was, thank you for doing that. But before it was like, hey, why am I doing this?
So let's continue, guys, because besides the Vault map, we have also had ZiggyD showcasing the new Hydra fights. But Hedgie, will you tell us what you think about this, the new fight?
Yeah, so the Hydra reveal is he's one of the 4 guardians that you need to kill in order to get to the Shaper. And what we know is that it drops 2 unique items in this boss fight. And from just looking at the video and the screenshot, you can see that he's wearing the Asphyxia's Wrath. And I don't know if the properties apply to him. I mean, he's like a cold-based archer, or it's a she, actually, sorry. But Asphyxia's Wrath has the property converts 20% of physical damage converted to cold. It also has 30% to 40% increased chill duration. Now, I don't know if that applies. It might just be for like thematic reasons or just MTX. But
I hope it does.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting, and I'm trying to gauge how much physical damage is in this fight. He uses a Sapphire Flask and Purity of Ice, and he still gets wrecked by a lot of the mechanics. Yeah. We see Immortal Call go off, so we can assume that there's physical damage for sure. It's not pure Ellie. And our speculation with the Frostbolts are right. Those things do shoot Frostbolts, and they do alternate from both sides. So,
well, Immortal Call will go off even if you take elemental damage. That doesn't.
Right. It's all damage now. Yeah. And then we have the multi-forking tornado shot where it like chains and then chains again, and there are dead zones that you have to stand in. So, I mean, that's a lot of moving parts in order to be successful with this, encounter. You're going to have to dodge, evade, and it looks like it's advantageous to play up close because then you can get behind it pretty easily. And what do you guys think about?
He does have like these brief moments where he's standing still, channeling a skill, where you have that opportunity to get behind him or her and attack him.
Right, and then Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it does seem that there's a dead zone behind the boss. The video,
like a blind spot.
The video that was mentioned didn't have modifications on the map, and it's a normal map. It's not a unique, which means this boss can be hasted. Twinned ? Is what I'm curious to. But looking at his speed, it looks like temp chains will destroy this boss. He is not fast. Not at all. And if he has wind-up animations that you have to dodge, temp chains will ruin it. The other thing, if you're not familiar, decoy totem probably will also ruin this boss.
I'm almost thinking that this dude here will be immune to curses.
Ooh, that would be interesting.
The mobs that have been immune to curses that they've given are generally some kind of like totem variant. I can understand wanting him to be immune to curses because of how, abusable curses are on boss or just all content. But that at that point, it's just like, if you're admitting curses are so broken that you need to make bosses immune to them, how would you feel if he was CI and you're like, well, my chaos build's fucked.
Yeah.
It would be a dick move, and being a move where like, hey guys, we can't really balance curses. We done goofed. Here's a curse immune boss. Don't do that.
I think we'll see changes to curses in the balance notes, but
I would love to see that.
But, I think we're going to see that. I really hope that it isn't Asphyxia's wrath that she's wearing. It's so cool to me. Like, this was Hedgie who pointed this out. He saw that it was an Asphyxia's based just on the graphics here, and this is a subtle hint to us. If that's the case, that it is actually that, and she benefits from those powers, that's a help to us, and that's really cool if we can benefit from these small clues here. So we do know we will have to be careful because of that hard, flat change to freeze in the chill, and we also know that this boss is going to have some, most likely, higher cold resistances.
Right, required. I mean, I hate how they never show you the HP. Whenever they're showcasing a build, it's like the mana globe and the health globe have no numbers, so it's hard to tell like what kind of gear this guy's rocking.
It looks better.
I like that because I don't want to immediately know how hard the boss is going to hit me if I've never done it before, and I don't want to know how much DPS I need to kill.
But there's so many other factors, right? With how you itemize your character, your defenses. It's just extra speculation. But I wanted to talk about some of the other abilities on the boss. You have a barrage that looks like it deals some cold damage, and then the blast rain has been augmented. Instead of a cluster, it's like a straight line. It's like a cascade of raining arrows, and that one seems like it's pretty easy to dodge.
Are we sure that it's blast rain though?
Yeah, that is a blast rain. It's been augmented to just go in that straight line, and then we have the actual mechanic where he blinks out. Now this is what I think is going to be like the anti-cheese mechanic for remote mine. Instead of just bursting the boss down from 100% to 0, he's going to have certain stages where he just blinks out. I'm guessing he'll be immune to damage. Like, it looked like it was every 20%. He blinks out, summons minions, and then, you can feed off of the minions, and he comes back. The minions leave vortexes. So the remote miners, if he's laying mines during the minion phase, he's not going to have them queued up for when the boss comes back, because he's got to deal with those ads. So I think that's pretty interesting. I think they're trying to get around the cheese of just bursting down the boss from 100% to 0.
Unless they make him somehow have immunity to temp chains, it's going to be very easy to dodge his attacks at that speed. They're very slow. And Bladefall Mine's kind of known for being the build that's good at, bosses that would have invulnerability phases and transitions.
Right.
I don't think we should underestimate all the crap that's going on the screen, though. And as we hear in the video, that this progressively gets more and more aggressive, like the speed of the projectiles increases. I don't know if they increase the boss damage.
They mentioned that, and I was looking for a meaningful change, but it's hard to tell because we don't know when video clips are taken. Do they mean length of the time by the damage? It would be funny if they're just going really, really fast at the end, and you're like, nope, done, I'm out.
I mean,
that'd be fantastic.
It could be. This could be a DPS check, right? if you don't have the DPS, you will die because of this solved enrage cap or whatever we should call it.
Is soft and like the soft enrage mechanics that's often done in raiding games.
Yeah, I think that's. I'm not sure if that would be a good thing, because that would really penalize the games that aren't super DPS focused, but have just focused on giving themselves some solid defensive mechanics. But
yes, but one thing to note with this fight in particular is, if you don't have really good DPS, you're not going to be able to generate charges. Like if your build relies on Blood Rage to generate frenzy charges, if you need Assassin's Mark, you have like a very small window of getting into that next phase to get more ads, because you fight him one-on-one or her one-on-one. And yeah, I mean, kind of like breaks down your build. And since it's all cold damage, it kind of seems like they're trying to shut down the ES based characters that can cheese it so easily. Because I mean, chill and freeze.
You have like 10, 11 second flask durations for freeze immunity. It's not shutting them down at all. That's just silly. I don't see how having a Stib Knight lasting like 7 something seconds, having at worst case scenario 3 charges being half a minute, and then 6 portals. I'm not getting frozen with 1 flask. And if it's cold, I can just put on 5 freeze immune flasks. Like, okay.
But that's assuming you can get the mines down in time with all the traps and the vortexes.
Assuming Bladefall Mine isn't nerfed, if Bladefall Mine can't do it, you're fucked. Like, simple as that. If you're like, oh, but it's going to penalize Bladefall Mine. Oh, so what's it going to do to every other build? Fuck them so hard they bleed.
All right, so on that note, what builds do you think will take this boss down easily if it's not
Bladefall Mine?
Besides that,
Fire Nova Mine.
Fire Nova Mine?
Have you seen how much damage the fucker does?
Have you seen how much of a pain it is to use? No one would ever level to the point where they could use Fire Nova Mines there. Like, they would die beforehand, literally.
Yeah, that's a good point.
As for archetypes, like, I think what we can see from this fight, like, it's definitely, we're talking about something that requires a lot of movement here. If you're too slow, I don't think we'll see like the traditional casters or maybe even channeling skills. Like, that would be very unpleasant to use in this fight. If you're standing still for too long, you'll be hit by a lot of crap.
Yeah.
I also think if it is true, maybe with the Asphyxia's Wrath, any skill that can make sure to have a lot of cold penetration will be very strong against something like this. I'm not sure if there's like a particular class or skill I'm thinking right now, but I actually think that what Ziggy is doing in here, like with the Tornado Shot and the Poison, that's probably one of the stronger builds against something like this.
Well, the game has always favored the ability or mobility. There's going to be certain bosses that if you have access to pre-prep your damage, Blade Vortex, something like that, you can do an insane amount of damage burst. But even those builds, the really good ones, Bladefall Mine has a lot of mobility. I would saying Bladefall Mine doesn't have mobility would be awkward to me. Sure, the targeting when there's a bunch of ads is annoying, but there's a lot of mobility to Bladefall Mine. That's why it's part of So Fantastic with Uber Itzeri. But and like Trio, all that fun stuff. It's great mobility. The game's always favored that. If you're stuck, you're just asking to die. And that's not going to change from this fight. It's not going to change. Here's the thing. When's the fight going to benefit? Standing still and avoiding nothing. Yeah, that's an intense fight.
I mean, how many fights are not like that right now? You just stand still, you make sure your Immortal Call works, and I mean, then you just spam and leech.
I mean, there are a lot of builds that make you move, or a lot of encounters. You have the Malformation boss, the Piety, that does a spinning circle. You have Torture Chamber where you have to break LOS. Same thing with the Plaza boss, so you need to break LOS. I mean, there are a few encounters where the bosses do pretty devastating hits if you just stand still. I mean, if you have the DPS, more often than not, you can just cheese it, 100% to 0 within a few seconds. But I feel like they're breaking away from that, incorporating mechanics that could potentially screw that build. And I don't know. It's like when I first saw this fight, I thought maybe melee is going to be really good, but then it seems like you get punished if you use multi-strike because you're going to be locked in place. So you're going to take that barrage to the face. So you need really, really fast attack speed, or you could go like Essence Drain. Essence Drain is probably ideal because you can just put up the damage and then move in circles around him. I don't see a summoner taking this guy out.
No, a summoner would definitely be challenged in this case. Oh, back to summoning specters. Oh, I don't have more portals. I think though one of the things I like to take away from this fight here is that this is a cold-based fight, it seems, and maybe this is an indication of the upcoming fights to be. Maybe lightning based, maybe fire.
I don't know.
Like
there's a fire phoenix. There's 3 elemental bosses and a minotaur with lightning. Who knows?
Dude, you make it sound like my predictions. You take away from my predictions here, man.
I think everybody figured that out. That's not a prediction.
No, you don't know if everyone had figured that out.
They did.
This was my chance. All right, guys, let's move on. We have also had some new base items presented in the game. We talked about the bone helmet, the steel ring, and the armor evasion belt last week. So this time around, we're just going to talk about the newly released ones. And for those, we have the 2-toned boots they're called. So it's dual resist boots. And the ones we see in the image is an armor and energy shield base. What do you guys think? Is it always going to be armor and energy shield?
It was confirmed through a Reddit post, I think. I gave you the link to that, and that was that there's going to be the 3 boots. There's also 3 data mined images and they seem to be under the same name. So we're going to have like 2 stone boots.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to have them with
nice.
the resist, but what about the base? Like is it armor? Could there be evasion and armor as well here?
Well, yeah, it's stated that each of them correlate to that resist type, wasn't it? Lightning is energy shield.
Okay. Fair enough.
Leather or evasion is cold, and then armor is fire, and those 2 combinations match them. So you can't get a lightning cold resist with armor.
Okay, I'll just quickly talk about the other ones, and then we'll talk about them in more in general. But and then we also have a crystal belt, which is a new high level requirement energy shield belt that goes from maybe around 65 till 80 flat added energy shield. We have the fingerless silk gloves that adds some spell damage, maybe 10 to 20%. Then we have the gripped gloves projectile, which adds projectile attack damage, 10 to 20%, maybe. And then we have the marble amulet that adds a percentage of life regeneration.
1.2 being the value. Yeah.
What do you guys think about these, Hedgie?
The gloves, the boots, I mean, these are competitors for lab enchants, and while they are pretty decently low, 73, I don't see them being like the best in slot item, which is what I would like to see if it has a higher level requirement than the highest tier base.
Yeah.
So the 2-tone boots, yeah, you could outget, get something nice, but eventually you're going to want a boot enchant that really enhances your character. Those are nice passive stats, but I don't really see those doing too much. The fingerless silk gloves that give you 30% increased spell damage, that could be nice for Essence Drain because the spell damage will affect the dot. But as far as the gripped gloves, the 15% increased projectile attack damage, it's not too appealing. Nah. I'd rather have a lab enchant because those are so much better and they make your character feel so powerful. If this was 15% proj damage, so that it would work for spells, double dipping, poison, ignite, it would be way more interesting. But
there's a general huge favoritism for the glove enchants. There's a lot of interesting and more fun attack-based glove enchants. But for the spells, I always found like, hey, I got Spite. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
And Spite's fantastically strong. Don't get me wrong, Spite is glorious. But there isn't it's not fun like the other ones are.
The Blades one is really fun if you have Cost Breeze. It does insane amounts of damage. The one that like ping pongs a blade and then it does physical damage and it chains. When you have Cost Breeze and the enemies are cursed, it poisons and it does really good damage.
Oh, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, but those are the only meaningful ones that I found for a spellcaster.
I think my favorite one is maybe the Marble Amulets. I think it's incredibly powerful that you can get 1.2% life regen as it showed on the on that picture. And this can potentially go higher. 1.2 life regen. If you're a Righteous Fire build or anything that just wants a bit of life regen, that is a lot of saved passive points that you can make up for here by just using this amulet. And then the crystal belt, like that value, it's insane. So much flat energy shield. And the way it scales right now, you can already get a ton with CI right now. So it's just that's powerful. I like though that this is a high level requirement items. So the idea of you getting there and actually being rewarded for it, I think that's pretty cool. The two-toned boots, I don't see too much potential in those because I would see
there's really good enchants for boots. That's the problem.
Yeah, there's good enchants, and it's also the case that while you do often want to get a lot of resistances on your boots, it's also the case that once you've gotten to level, I think that was 75 as well, or something around that level, you're already resistance capped, and you're most likely also elemental weakness capped. So getting that resistances on your boots is not going to be too useful compared to getting that enchant. Had they a lower level requirement, for instance, level 20 or something like that, they would have been very, very useful for leveling up and gearing your character to make it easier. But yeah, I
mean, it's kind of nice because you can start out with rare versions of these bases and then work your way up to the lab enchant. I mean, 19 of 2 res, that's really good, and it's going to help in big ways. But what I was thinking was, when they actually make uniques behind this, that means it has to have the power level minimum of an item level 72 item. And usually when supporters go through the development process, they have to talk about what eye level it's going to be gated around or what power levels it's going to have. And you have things like Void Battery, Wrath Pit, those are like 74, 72. And I don't know what they're going to come up with. It's going to be insanely powerful.
Yeah.
But as far as the Marble Amulet, it's all too often when you get an RF build, you're like, oh, well, I can't run this reduced regen map because I don't have enough regen to compensate it. And I think this is going to go a long way to help that, because it is percentage based, not a flat amount, which is really good.
To be fair, it was the shittiest base before, like 1.2 flat life regen or something like that, maybe up to 3 flat on the Coral Amulet. Could work in the beginning for a race, but I guess that's about it.
Well, it makes sense why it has such the high level requirement. Getting that early
should be.
I think the amulet and the belt are definitely worth farming, and like to PT's argument last week, where there's nothing in between. There's just this huge gap from 20 to 73. That's like pretty insane. I think those essences, the tier 1 ES essence, that's what I would use it on, the crystal belt.
Yeah.
That'll probably be worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys, we have some uniques we didn't talk about the last time either. Let's quickly go over these. It's Valerium. Let me open it up here so you guys can see it. We're going to start with Valerium, and that's the new Moonstone ring. And the unique thing about this Moonstone ring is that first of all, it gives you minus 40% cold resistance, so that's the downside of using it. But it also has that affix that says stun threshold is based on energy shield instead of life. So basically, this is the new ring you want to use as an alternative to Chayula if you're running an energy shield based build to prevent stuns. What do you guys think of this project?
Well, the one thing that it is different than the Eye of Chahula is the stun threshold being based on an energy shield does allow you to run a life-based build getting stunned all the time and trying to play around for silly reasons using cast on stun. That being said, you should probably ask Hedgie about his opinion on the ring before everybody hates me when I tear into this one.
All right, go ahead, Hedgie.
I mean, all around, it's a great option. Frees up the amulet slot so that you don't feel forced to use Chayula. And Chayula prevents you from getting spell damage, crit chance, crit multiplier, cast speed, things that are very valuable. The minus 40 to cold resist, I mean, that is kind of a downside because usually energy shield based characters make up for their resist on really GG, chests, shields, and accessories. That isn't the amulet slot. But you can get resist on amulets and make up for the minus 40 to cold res. Chayula was nice because you could easily corrupt it and get +1 curse, plus 1% max res. I shouldn't say easily corrupted, but it was a possibility, and you could buy a lot of them at a greater chance instead of just corrupting a really nice amulet and losing it and bricking it. So I like that there are more options to deal with stun. You had Skyforce, really, really expensive. It's stun threshold based off of your mana, 500% of your mana, and then you have Chayula immune to stun, and then now this. You could also go with the Leo mod and some stun recovery or stun avoidance at the ranger section, but it's not going to be as good as this Valyrium ring.
I think the downside is nothing compared to what it gives you. Yeah, I think this ring is so powerful, and I don't think I would ever run a CI build without this ring in the future, but
unless you had Skyforce, obviously, and it fit the build.
Yeah. But yeah.
It looks a bit more caster friendly because there's not any attack based stats on it. And when you see CI attack based or low life attack based builds, they have godly amulets like Flat Fizz, Wed, lots of accuracy, which is what you would lose on a ring. So you have some tough choices now because you have Dream Fragments if that's the way you want to deal with Freeze, and all these other uniques. It's stirring the pot a bit.
Stirring, and that's what we want. That's what makes it interesting. Do you want to say anything about this project? Maybe should we skip to the next?
I would say in the all right, a unique item is supposed to be somehow unique. This is a better Eye of Chihula. Now, Eye of Chihula does give you stun immunity. There's some very, very subtle differences. You can talk about the resist penalty, but Eye of Chihula doesn't even have a flat energy shield roll. It doesn't. This ring is an extremely lazy better Eye of Chihula for absolutely no reason. And one of the penalties to CI is always, working around its downsides, and they just keep giving us stronger things. There are certain builds that don't want Skyforce, Essence Train, for example. There are builds that want Skyforce, and if you can avoid it here, but this is power creep for the sake of power creep, and it's really lazy. I don't give a shit about this ring. It's terribly designed.
All right. Anyway, we're just going to skip to the next item here. And we have Kondo's Pride here. So what's unique about this thing here is that it has that 30% chance to blind enemies on critical strike. It cannot leech life from critical strikes. And then we have causes bleeding on melee critical strikes. So the thing that's kind of weird about this thing is that you do want to have some crit to benefit from these stats, but you don't want to have too much because then you don't benefit fully. I'm not really sure. I think it's a funny item. I'm not sure if I like it too much. The damage is pretty high though. What do you think, Hedgie?
Yeah, I mean, when I calculated it, without quality, it was around 460 DPS. So they're definitely pushing that number on a unique item. I mean, we have Auras that's insane, but that's fire. But looking at the Kondo's Pride, immediately I thought of Flicker Strike, because blind could be pretty cool. It's kind of promotes hitting something more than once because you get bonus damage after the bleed ailment is applied, and then you have a significant amount of leech. You can get the crit wheel. What is it on the left-hand side of the tree? Next to the Marauder, it's disemboweling. that might be enough to get it into a sweet spot.
Yeah.
We also have the chance to bleed with Blade Master and Razor's Edge. Gives you accuracy and fizz damage. I don't know how this build is gonna, how it's gonna be, but it seems like it's fun. Yes. I kind of looked at the Gladiator. The Gladiator has some really cool keystones or some big notables, which involve bleed mechanics and will increase your consistency on bleeding. You can get 25% and 10% from the two nodes, but the small mini nodes, those are one-handed weapon related, and it doesn't really enhance your build. But it might be worth it. It might be worth going out and getting, let's see, what is it called? I have it here.
Well, it has good physical damage, as you said, but I think the idea of going crit with it just is a nice reward for not having RT. Bleeds don't stack, blinds don't stack, so I mean, if you're on the right side of the tree and maybe you're trying to do RT two-handed swords, might be funny. Then RT. Again, blind, you have Stib Knight. It looks like it's a leveling sword. Like it'll bridge you to something better. But
it'll be one of those
essence
swords
crafting,
you equip when you start mapping, and then you do really well with that for some time, and then you get something better. That's more specific to your build, I think.
Yeah, and if you're trying to invest into the crit and manage that, when you realize bleeds don't stack, blind doesn't stack, you're just wasting investment when you could just not do it. And it's not even like, hey, I want blind, Stib Knight Flask, or don't. You're losing all your crit multi, so why?
All right.
Yeah, and then the bleed. Well, yeah. How many people are going out of their way for those bleeds in the game right now?
The problem and the experience I've had with two-handed swords, especially crit swords, is building up late game defense. Like you don't have the block chance that you would get from a staff, and now you're kind of dice rolling whether you're going to blind or leech. It's kind of scary. So it's definitely something to be concerned about. But I could definitely see this being played with the Gladiator Ascendancy, especially with the explosions, the gratuitous violence, outmatch and outlast. Outmatch and outlast gives you frenzy charge in your main hand, so you could flicker that much easier and get some more defensive.
Could be fun with gratuitous violence, yeah. It actually could be a lot of fun, yeah. But then again, I once theory crafted a build with Jack the Axe around that as well. I mean, I think you'd rather just want to have that 100% chance to bleed if that's the case, but yeah, I don't know. Let's take a look at probably one of the more interesting items being added as well, the Praxis Power Ring, which has been stretched a lot here. It looks great. So the thing that's unique here, and this was Hedgie who also brought this to the attention, is that this is the first time we see an Elrian mod on an actual unique ring. So we have the -4 to mana cost of skill. It requires level 22, and then it has the other unique property of 8% of damage taken gained as mana when hits. And I don't know about the last property. We've seen it a few times pushed out into the skill tree as well. So you can gain some mana when you take some damage. But I don't think we've ever really seen anything successful with that. I'm not saying there isn't anything, but I don't know. What do you guys think about this, PT?
I've always been a fan of mana tanks, D2. It was one of my favorite ways to do a sorceress, sorry. Yeah. But I always feel we're missing a tool when trying to put the concept together. Yeah. And yeah, this is more mana efficiency. It has the skill cost reduction. It allows us to get more mana on hit, but it's not the tool we need to make.
It's another layer.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think?
That's simple.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that you can make a very tanky character. It's just the problem I have when I'm trying to come up with a mana-based character is that I lack the damage. Like, how am I going to dish damage? We're in a meta where we have every incentive to reserve our mana, whether it's blasphemies, heralds, auras. You'd have to use a skill that doesn't really require or doesn't really excel off of an aura or a herald. So, I mean, how many skills are that? It's like EA, maybe Bladefall, Mine, Poison. It doesn't need a defense or an offensive aura to work, but wouldn't you rather have the defenses of, I don't know, some Purity, Arctic Armor, or whatever like that? It's like, yeah, we can make it tanky, but how are we going to deal damage? Maybe this has some interesting synergies with channel-based skills coming up, since you are going to be standing still and you won't be dodging as much, like mechanically moving your character to avoid projectiles. So this could be kind of cool for that. So it'd be, I don't know, it'd be a knee-jerk reaction to say this thing is bad, but we don't know what's to come.
I will go with it's bad. unless they give you a layered mechanic, you don't have that thing to work with.
That's pretty much how I feel.
We need a tool.
It's in the current state of the game, it doesn't really fit well, but we don't know what's coming up. Maybe there are more things to support this kind of build.
So guys, we're running out of time here. We also wanted to talk about what it is that we hope to gain for 2.4 in Atlas, but that's a big discussion. I think we should save that for next week so that we can go over that. But near the end here, let's just quickly take a look at the supporter packs that has also been released with this, because I know a lot of people have been fairly excited about this. I'm going to put on the video here, and we can see it. What do you guys think of the new supporter packs?
The first tier looks so good.
Yeah, I really like the Minotaur. I got that right away, and I plan on getting the Hydra too. I don't know, for the third and fourth tier, I'm not really in love with it. The weapon effect on the third tier, the Chimera, what do you guys think about that?
You brought
I saw it on a bow, and it actually looked like feathers, which looked cool, but then I saw it on the claw, and I was like, what?
I really just like the more simple styles in Path of Exile. I think it gets a little too fancy sometimes, and I think it kind of breaks the immersion of the game. Really like the very simple and more like aggressive and practical looking armor types. So the Minotaur, for instance, is probably my favorite.
Are you saying the Minotaur horns are practical? Is that
I mean, you can kill people with that.
Okay.
It looks so awesome on my Viper Strike shield charger. It's so awesome. It's like a raging bull.
It's perfect on the shield charger. That's true.
Yeah.
I like the first two because they do hold that kind of dark mysticism that the game tries to sell itself on. And then I'm colorblind, I'm going to go with Yellow Fire Dude. It's kind of like, all right, so Goku's walking around here with some feathers. And interesting. And the other one, it's fine. It seems like it would be nice. Like, I really liked actually the pauldrons on that character, but the helmet dimensions just kind of was like, not my thing.
Yeah, I liked that they brought the armor sets back, and it's definitely cool that we can emulate the Guardians.
Yeah, I guess that's the theme. So, guys, we're done for today. Next week, we're gonna talk more about We're gonna talk more about what makes a good challenge league. We're gonna talk about the implementation of Prophecy into the league. We're going to talk more about the upcoming news that will get presented during this week, because we're getting very close to the release of the expansion now. So I think next week we should probably expect a lot of information there. I'm looking forward to that. One thing we should probably also mention is that there's not going to be any new skill gems at the release of the expansion. They have said that they aren't ready to release the skill gems. They're not in a state that they're happy with, so we shouldn't expect that, unfortunately. That's a little disappointing to me, but that's another thing. But we're also
I'd still rather them be done than
of course. And this also gives us, something to look forward to down the line when they are released. I guess that's great. We just really hope they will maybe rework some of the older skills then. And then we will, of course, also have the segment we didn't get to do today. So what we are hoping that 2.4 will do for us. So some speculation, some hopeful or some musings, some thinking. And with that said, we're done for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to check out the podcast next Sunday, make sure to give the channel a follow. We're doing this every Sunday, except for the periods of time where there's not a lot of stuff going on in Path of Exile. Then we will be doing it bi-weekly instead of weekly.
It'll be hosted on Hedgie's YouTube, if you're not aware, if you want to catch it later or in the future when you can't make the Sundays.
Yes, that's the bot. And that will be uploaded probably in a few hours to Hedgie's YouTube if you haven't seen it. So, thank you for tonight, Hedgie and PT. You want to say
it was a lot of fun. Yeah, a lot of fun. Can't wait to do it next week.
Awesome, dudes. Take care.
We're really hoping for a little bit more information. All right. Enjoy.
Take care, guys.
Peace.